Hi, welcome to our information session on our counselor education programs. My name is Dr. Catherine Feather, and also with us today is
Hi, Dr. Heather Jacinto.
yeah, so welcome. So we're hoping that through this video, you'll get a better understanding of our counselor education programs, what the expectations are, who we are as a profession, and how to apply to our programs moving forward. So we're thinking today we'll just do, like we did a quick little introduction, but we'll also just give you a brief overview of the faculty that are in the counselor education program. As I said before, just talk a little bit about the counseling profession, but not only about like who we are as a profession and our professional identity, but just the job outlook for those that want to become a counselor, which is very exciting for our field. Then go into specific program information, talk about our mission statement, talk about our programs of study, and then really take a deep dive into the specific programs that we have in Counselor Ed. And then we're going to talk about tips and strategies for applying to our program. We've found this to be really helpful. We've gotten great feedback from students regarding just the tips and tricks when it comes to applying. And then last but not least, we'll talk about resources. All right. So we have a pretty big counselor education faculty. We have lots of folks with different backgrounds, different specialties, different expertise clinically or in the schools. And so Dr. Ching Chen Chen has been here for, I think, what do you, Dr. Dahl just sent out, is
Gosh,
it?
probably close to 9 years.
9 years, yeah. So Dr. Chen, she teaches a lot of our appraisal and assessment courses, research, counseling, theories course, also supervises practicum and internship. Dr. Tamika Bell is a new faculty member and also is very interested and has a background teaching research methods, also has a background teaching and supervising students, and is licensed as a clinical professional counselor in the state. Also a new faculty member who is also our field-based coordinator. So what that means is Dr. Clark helps with our practicum and internship courses and helps with those relationships and establishing relationships in Nevada and beyond for our students to be placed in clinical and school settings. And we're very lucky to have Dr. Clark and Dr. Dahl Jacinto. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm the program coordinator. If you apply or want more information, usually I am the one that you will reach out to. And I'm a clinical mental health background and happy to see you today.
Yes, yes. And then again, Dr. Catherine Feather, clinical professional counselor, have worked in lots of different settings, working with children in a school-based setting, all the way up into a rehabilitation agency where I worked with individuals adjusting to their visual disability and the counseling that goes along with that. But also very much focused in on counseling theories and supervision. That's really my bread and butter, for lack of better words. And then Dr. Wendy Hoskins has been here for
20
20,
years. 20
20,
years.
okay. 20 years. So has the history and the background and has seen this program evolve, and is very interested in the group processes course, as well as the counseling theories courses. So you will definitely work with Dr. Hoskins, whether you're in the school, or the clinical mental health counseling programs or certificates. And then Dr. Jungnam Kim, also teaches our group processes courses, and our ethics course, and has supervised our practicum courses as well. Dr. Jared Lau has a background as a school counselor, student affairs, and clinical. So is across the board and has been here for I think 10 plus years in the program as well. And then Dr. Nixon is a clinical professional counselor in the state and teaches across the program, lots of different courses, the diagnosis course, and the basic counseling skills course as well. Dr. Shannon Smith, just like Dr. Wendy Hoskins, has been in the program for 20 years and teaches a lot of our practicum, multicultural counseling course, as well as our basic counseling skills course as well. And then last but not least is Dr. Chris Wood, who is the chair of our department, and also teaches within the program and has a school counseling background. All right, so as I mentioned before, this is a great time to become a counselor. These are stats that we got from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, so they're pretty legit. And I want to draw your attention to the left side of the PowerPoint. So when it comes to substance use, behavioral disorder, mental health counselors, I want to draw your attention to the middle portion, which is a 14% increase, which we'll see until 2029 for counselors. So this is being compared across all occupations, which is just a 4% growth, 14% growth. This is across the United States. And you'll even see above that, which this will be a plug for our addiction certificate program. Not only is there a 14% increase with just becoming a counselor, a mental health counselor, but working specifically with substance use and process disorders, 25% increase. So definitely something they're projecting that we're going to need counselors in the field and lots of them. Now I want to draw your attention to the right side of the screen, which is comparing the just clinical mental health counselors, which is the 14% increase, and school counselors, which is an 8% increase compared to the 4% across all occupations. So for those that are watching this that are interested in the school counseling program, you might say like, oh gosh, like it's only 8%, like that's a little less, like am I going into the right field? Well, let me bring you to the state-based stats, because I think those are actually really important. So you'll see at the top of this list is Nevada, 31% projected growth in Nevada when it comes to school counselors. And you can see like all the other states here, because we recognize reciprocity. You may be interested in another state, but we like talking about Nevada because we want to serve the children and individuals living in Nevada, Southern Nevada specifically. But yeah, 31% increase. So definitely our students in the school counseling program are offered jobs even before they graduate, usually during their internship. So definitely exciting time to become a clinical mental health counselor and a school counselor. And last but not least, again, since we drew your attention to the 31% increase when it comes to school counseling in the state, in the state of Nevada, when it comes to clinical mental health counselors, it's a 17% job growth rate. So compared to the national average, which is 14, 17, that's a little bit higher. In addition, just like because we live in Nevada, we know that gambling is definitely a part of the culture here, and just substance use in general. You'll see it across state lines, like it's still a 22% job growth. So exciting times to become a counselor. So I think it's important because a lot of times when students attend this information session, they ask like, what is a counselor? Like, what do you focus on? What is your identity? And when I compare it to like social work or marriage, couples, and family counselors, what's the difference? And so we like to draw your attention to this definition that, oh my goodness, like a board of folks who are leaders in our field came up with. And I think it really does capture what we do and who we serve across the board. So at the center of what we do is the professional relationship, no matter what. Like the working alliance, building that bond with our students and clients is key. And then the second part of that definition is about empowering diverse, so working with individuals with different intersecting identities and social locations, but not only at the individual level. We think about our work when we work with families and groups, but when we focus in and when we think about our work, we really think about our work when it comes to wellness. And wellness, there's lots of different dimensions of wellness when we think about like your physical wellness, your spiritual wellness, your emotional wellness. There's 8 different dimensions of it. That's a key piece to how we conceptualize our work with students and clients. But we also recognize too that we have to treat mental health. And in addition to that, we have to think about education and extending that to the school counseling profession. And then also the center of what we do is focused on career, which is where counseling was born out of, was this career counseling field. We know that usually jobs take up 30% of our life. And so we know it's important to focus in on this specific area as well. And then the last piece, Dr. Dal Jacinto and I added this quote because I think it's important, and Dr. Kress is another leader in our field. but we see ourselves as helpers and healers. But when we work with individuals or with groups, we recognize that the interaction that we have can have a ripple effect on those that it impacts. So if it impacts an individual, we're hoping that that extends the next person that they interact with. So I think that's a really beautiful way of capturing how we can impact not only the individual, but systems levels as well.
Yep.
Okay, so our mission statement. So you'll see here that we have bolded. I think our mission statement is really beautiful, and I think it captures what we do, but there's specific pieces of it that I want to draw your attention to. So when you attend our program, you're going to be taught the latest evidence-based methods, techniques, theories. Of course, we're going to give you the foundational knowledge, right? We're going to talk about Freud. We're going to talk about like these early theories that like are the framework and the backbone to who we are. But we're going to talk about theories and evidence-based techniques and practices and interventions that are cutting edge, that are coming into our field that we know are helpful when it comes to healing our students and our clients. So that's something we want to draw your attention to. We also want you, while you're learning this foundational knowledge and skills, to really come at your practice from a critical lens. So thinking about, is what I'm reading, like being a good consumer of knowledge. So when you learn it in the school, when you're out in the field, can you look at something and say like, yeah, this is something that's really appropriate for this specific client or student that I'm working with? Or can you see it as like, ooh, maybe this isn't the direction I should go because of the different data analysis they engaged in or who wrote this specific article. We want you to be critical thinkers, but we also want you to think about, again, this talked about the ripple effect, not only at the individual level, but thinking collectively and systematically about how systems and systems of oppression impact our clients and the students that we serve. So really thinking holistically, biopsychosocial, politically about our clients is how we want you to conceptualize your work when you approach your students and your clients. And also too, it's the last piece. We want our students to leave here thinking about, okay, I have these awareness, I have these knowledge, I have these skills, competencies, but I also have this social justice advocacy lens. When you leave here, you're going to have a master's, whether it's a clinical mental health counselor, school counselor, whether you have this addiction certificate, whatever it is, you're going to have power. There's power with that. So how do you use your power in a way to better serve clients and students in the field? We want you to make a difference in society, that's for sure. Okay, moving on. So let's talk a little bit about our programs. You keep hearing me like kind of throw out these different like programs that we have. Well, there's 4. So we have 2 K-CREP accredited programs, which are both 60-hour. They're our school and our clinical mental health counseling program. And then we also have certificates, which we'll talk a little bit more about, which is our clinical mental health counseling certificate and our addiction certificate today. So let's talk a little bit about our school counseling program. So we definitely follow the ASCA national model, which is the association, the American School Counseling Association. I'm sorry, I get those mixed up. Get those mixed up. My bad. I'm so
Switch
sorry.
them around, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. It's 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, so this is just where we're at. Anyways, okay, so we follow their national model, which focuses on 3 specific domains, which is the academic career and the social emotional needs of students. So a lot of our work is grounded within that model, as well as other classes that you take in the program. So you're going to have 2 specific school counseling courses, but you're going to also have courses in our multicultural social justice counseling class. You're going to have classes, if you would like, depending on the electives, taking a diagnostic course in our class, taking the trauma course. So the exciting piece of the program of study for the school counselors is you have 3 different electives and you can kind of pick and choose. Do you want to go outside of our program to take maybe a course working with students with disabilities? Maybe you take that in the EMS department. That's something you work out with your advisor, but At the center of what we do is around the Ask a National model, which is the academic, career, and personal and social needs of students and focusing on that lens. Now there's 3 different programs, and Dr. Dahl, I don't know if you wanna, Dr. Dahl Jacinto, you
Yeah.
wanna explain? Mhm.
Yeah, I'd love to. So all of our classes, just to keep in mind, meet face to face. So we're generally a face-to-face program. You will have some opportunities in the summer for asynchronous, but when you think of these plans, plan on being here a couple days a week. Classes are usually at 4 p.m. or 7 p.m. 1 day a week. So if you are, depending on which plan you are, it means you might be here a couple days a week or possibly 3. And we have 3 plans. These are fresh off the presses. We've just altered our course sequences a little bit to better meet the needs of our students. So our standard plan, so this is our, you want to come in and get the experience of a school counseling student and have a nice 3 courses a semester. You're going to sign up for a 3-year standard plan. So you're taking about 3 courses a semester, and then you'll take your practicum and internship a little bit later in that 3rd year. With the 4, then we have for our part-timers that are interested in, just taking a couple classes a semester, we have a 4-year part-time plan. So that's about 2 courses a semester, and then taking your internship in your last year. And then for those of you that are like, I just need to do it really fast, we have our 2-year accelerated plan. So that's 4 courses a semester. It's very intense. And you are finishing up in 2 years as opposed to the 3-year standard plan. So
That's
anything
something you would
missing?
have like approved with your advisor, something you
Yeah.
talk to your advisor about. But the 3-year standard plan is full-time. So in graduate school, 3 classes is full-time. So just taking into consideration like what's going to best serve you. That's something you work out with your advisor, definitely.
And just to add, all of these classes or all of these plans include requirements to take classes in the summer.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a great point. Hot off the press.
Hot off the press. And then for deadlines for the programs, we have a
Oh,
priority deadline of January 15th and a deadline of February 1st. We always say just plan on applying by that January 15th deadline, and making sure that you have all your materials in by then.
yes. So for the clinical mental health counseling program, we train our students to be prepared to enter like community agencies as well as private practices, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit. We also prepare our students on very specific specialty courses in clinical mental health counseling, which are very exciting. And when I went to school, however many years ago, it was community counseling back then. I didn't get to take couples, families courses. And so our program of study with clinical mental health has 2 different courses when it comes to relational counseling and marriage, couples, and family counseling, which I think is great. But other specialty courses in our program of study is the grief counseling course, the trauma course, the addictions course. These are all specific courses that help you become licensed within the state and outside the state as well. So just same explanation of a little bit different though of what Dr. Dahl Jacinto shared. It's a little bit different on the clinical mental health counseling side. And Dr. Dahl, I don't know if you want to take this one
Yeah,
over.
of course. So our standard plan for clinical mental health counselors ends up being about 2.5 years. So it's a full 2 years, and then you'd go into the fall semester of that second year. So you'd be done in the winter semester. You'd be done by winter break. That's 3 courses a semester. Like Dr. Feather said, that's full time. So if that's a standard plan, it means you're taking your internship into that final summer fall. We have a 4-year, again, part-time plan that's very similar. Again, it's 2 courses a semester. And then we have the accelerated plan. If you're really needing to go a little bit quicker, again, approved by your advisor. That one's through 2 years. You would go into the summer with your internship hours, and that's 4 courses per semester. Classes are the same time as our school counseling program because you're in a lot of the same classes as our school counseling students. So again, face-to-face, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are generally when our classes are held at 4 p.m. or 7 p.m. and the same deadline of January 15th and February 1st, but really be looking at that January 15th deadline.
All right, so now we're going to get into our certificates. So this is the Advanced Graduate Certificate in Addiction Studies. And so what this prepares you to do is to be able to be licensed as a LCADC, which is a licensed clinical alcohol and drug abuse counselor. Say that 10 times, but um, if you were to be in the school counseling or clinical mental counseling program and you recognize like, hey, based on the stats, I know that I'm going to see this whether I'm in the K through 12 schools or out in the field. I know that I'm going to be working with co-occurring disorders. What that means is the mental health side, as well as someone who's maybe struggling with an addictions or a process addiction, something to think about, right? You're definitely going to be interacting with clients and seeing clients come through your practice who maybe have a substance use or process concern. And so what this does is if you are enrolled in our school counseling or clinical mental counseling program and you apply for our addiction certificate, the expectation is a little bit different. So if you were out in the field and came back to complete the certificate, you would have to complete 24 credits. But if you're concurrently taking it, you only have to take 12 credits, which is 4 classes. Once you complete the 4 classes, there's also hour differences. So it's reduced to 1,500 hours versus 4,000 hours you would have to get if you were already licensed in the field. What's also exciting with this and what we found out is students can graduate. So let's say you're entering your spring semester, you graduate, but you want to finish out a couple of courses with the certificate, you can do that. Just know that it won't be covered by financial aid. So something to think about, it's another option because sometimes students are a little leery to apply because like, ooh, this is going to extend my program of study by a semester or two. But there's ways around it. You just have to be informed of like, okay, if you choose this way, it won't be covered by financial aid, where if you were still in the clinical mental counseling or school counseling program, it would. So that's something you would work out with your advisor, but a very cool opportunity and a very interesting certificate that we have that a lot of people are interested in. This is same deadlines as before, just have January 15th in your mind. And really we tell students like if it's an interest of yours, you're not sure, apply. Because to know this at the beginning of the fall semester, let's say you're accepted into the program and you have this addiction certificate, you can always drop it if you want, or adding it just you have to wait a year to do that right now in our program. And last but not least, another exciting opportunity that we have here specifically, we find that students who are in the clinical mental health I'm so sorry, the school counseling program are interested in this certificate, but we've also seen applicants apply to this program who have a forensic psychology background that want to be licensed in the state as a clinical professional counselor. They apply to this certificate program. Now you'll see here, it's not as detailed as the other because it just depends on your professional background. So a forensic psychologist, for example, like will have different classes than someone who's in our school counseling program. So that this is something when you apply to this certificate, just know that it'll be looking at your transcript, communicating with the state here, the board here, when it comes to clinical professional counseling, are very open to providing feedback of looking at your transcripts, seeing what your transcripts have on it, and then offering recommendations. So it's a little bit more like depending on who your background of what you'll need to fill the requirement to be licensed in the state. Dr. Dahl Jacinto, is there
Yeah,
anything?
I always want to suggest to students that are or applicants that are interested in this advanced certificate in mental health to reach out to the state first, because we're going to send you there eventually anyway. So you need to make sure that what you need is very clear for you as you're going to apply to the certificate program. It's 12 to 24 credits, but that's very dependent on what your actual needs are. Like Dr. Feather was saying, if you have a forensic psychology degree, you might need 24 credits versus a school counseling student may need 12, right? So
Yes.
it's just really important that you're speaking to the state who's going to approve your licensure application. And we're here as a support for that.
Yep, definitely. It's an exciting opportunity. So now we're getting to the tips and tricks when it comes to applying to our program. So usually we get over 200 applications, and I'm not saying that to like scare anyone, but we get a lot of individuals that are interested in our program. And so we want to give you the tips and tricks of like, how do you stand out? How do you go up in our rubric so you are at the top of the list, so you're invited to our group interview, and then hopefully accepted into the program. So a couple of like, just like basic tips and tricks to start with. No missing documents. And you may say, well, isn't that just a no-brainer? But you'd be surprised. There are just things that we ask for that you may think like, oh, I submitted that or forget, and it then impacts how we assess your entire application. So think about like, make sure all your transcripts are uploaded, make sure you have 3 letters of recommendation, make sure you submit your writing sample. All those pieces, or your resume as well, all those pieces are very important. Submit well before the deadline, January 15th. Just have that in your mind. And we say this because at the grad school, we have lots of graduate programs and a lot of people are applying at that time. And there are a lot of programs that are reviewing and inviting students to interview for their programs. And so sometimes it happens, your application gets lost if it's after the February 1st deadline. So just have January 15th in mind. Follow the instructions. I really think, again, this goes to the writing sample and we'll go into specifics of this, but make sure you just read every word and know what's expected. And this last bullet point, I'm gonna skip a little bit because this I think goes into the writing sample, which we'll talk about in the next slide. And the next, I think bullet point 2 goes into that, so maybe we'll go. Okay, so we asked for 3 different sections of this writing sample. So when you're thinking about it, make sure your thoughts are very clear and organized. So think about headings. Think about, take time with the writing sample. Some people do really well by just writing it out, but we do suggest you go back, like come back a couple days later and read it and think about, am I really answering their question? Am I capturing myself fully? Am I explaining myself fully? Do they have an idea of who I am when it comes to why am I explaining myself when it comes to like, am I explaining how I'm a good fit for the profession in a way that's meaningful? Am I weaving in my background and my lived experiences into this? Just think about that and don't rush this process because we can tell when a student has written it the night before and when a student has taken time with this process. So we want to know why you're a good fit for the counseling profession. We also want you to state your goals, your career goals. Like, what do you want when you graduate? And how does that weave into going back to our mission statement, focusing in on social justice and advocacy and really multicultural issues and systemic issues that are impacting clients and students? How are you going to address that? And then also just how addressing your unique skills as a human being and how you can contribute not only to the program, but the greater society. Dr. Dahl, is there anything
Yeah,
else?
I think about all the emails that I get, maybe from you watching this right now. And one of the things I get asked is what makes me a good fit for the program and how do I let you know that maybe my GPA isn't a 4.0, but I have all of these other pieces. The writing sample is really when we get to see that. And we'll talk about your letters of recommendation or another point for that. But that's why when you spend time on this and you really think about what are the things that my resume or CV doesn't say about me, that I can say in this 500 to 750 words. It's really an intro for us to you. So make sure that you're researching what counseling is and that you can speak to that and why specifically a counseling program is what you want to be in, and what are things that you would bring to the program. I think those are really important pieces to be thinking about. And I think one of the most common emails that I get is how do I make myself competitive for the program? I think a lot of that is in the writing sample.
I totally agree. I think this is the time to highlight all of the strengths and what would make you a wonderful fit for counseling. And again, our program, and you'll see, and we recommend take a look at our mission statement and take a look at the faculty too and their background. That's a great point. All right, so Dr. Del DeCento talked a little bit about the three letters of recommendation. This is also a very important piece because we do have students who have a background as an engineer and they realize like that was not life-giving for me and this is the direction I want to go. You can really highlight that through your writing sample and your letters of recommendation. So we recommend professional letters, whether there's someone that you work with that says like, wow, this person is a helper and a healer. And this is how I've seen it in their work in the professional field and lens. We also say professors. Now, I say this with a little caveat because we also get students who haven't been at the university for 20 years, and they're like, I don't even know if my professor's around anymore. So it's not one where we're like, you have to have a professor, send a letter of recommendation. Now, if they do, that's awesome, but it's not the end all be all. We won't say like nix your whole application because you don't have a letter from a professor. Oh, I mean, volunteer work, also like colleagues. But when we think about like professional relationships, we then have to go to what we don't recommend, which is personal relationships. So we do sometimes get letters of recommendation from friends, and we don't recommend that specific letter of recommendation. Also, this is another one that comes up, having a letter of recommendation from a counselor, a therapist, or a psychologist. Also something we don't recommend when submitting
That you attended.
that you attended.
Like
Yes,
you're a counselor or yeah.
that's a great point. Because you may have a friend, or I'm so sorry, you may have a colleague that you work with that is the clinical professional counselor at the agency you work at that can be like, oh my gosh, this person is a perfect fit for your program. And this is the next step in their professional journey. That would be
Yeah.
great.
But not your own professional or your own professional
Yes,
counselor that would say like, well, they had this issue last week that we talked about, right? Like there's just a big difference there in what's going to be valuable for a letter.
that's so true. Um, the last piece, which I think is this last bullet point, is don't get discouraged. Again, we ask for a lot of information, break up this process. If you want to just be like, I can do my transcripts tonight, that's easy to find or that's easy to send over, great, check it off the list. But don't get discouraged because I promise you, once you get to the end and you submit, it's going to be a relief. And we will look forward to reviewing your entire application.
I'll just add to that because another question that I get a lot is what prerequisites do we have for the program? And we don't. So you just need a bachelor's degree. Like Dr. Feather said, if it's in electrical engineering and that didn't bring you joy, that's not preventing you from applying directly to our program. These letters and your writing sample are really what's going to tell us why you're a fit for the program now, no matter what your undergraduate degree was. So no like statistics prerequisites or anything like that. We're really looking for fit for the program.
Mhm. Making that message very clear. So that's the first piece of this, right? So you submit all of your written materials. Also, when you submit your letters of recommendation, which I didn't mention on the other slide, what I'm thinking about now is you can see when the person that you have asked to write a letter of recommendation has submitted it. So if it's getting close to that January 15th deadline, you're like, ooh, it's kind of cutting it close. I've sent a couple reminders. Maybe that's a time to remove them. Tell them you're removing them because you're a little worried or whatever you need to do and add someone else. So you know that this information is going through. But let's say your entire application is submitted. We then as a faculty review your application materials. You have two reviewers on each applicant's material, and then we use a rubric and we assess your material, and then you're put in an Excel sheet and you're ranked. And then we have a cutoff for who we invite for interview day. So you're like, oh my God, I just thought it was just like the written part. No, there's a second part. Because we'd like to get to know you in person. We'd like to know if like based on what you shared in your application, if you are a good fit for our program. So yeah, so we have a group interview. There's a morning and afternoon session. We usually let students know a week and a half to 2 weeks before the group interview day, so you can make your arrangements on your end. I think we work really hard and somehow it works out where your preferred time frame, whether you want the morning or afternoon, works out, but we don't make any promises. But somehow Dr. Dahl
Just
just
always seems
always works
to
out.
balance
I
out. Yeah,
I don't
it's so
even know.
great.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Uh,
it works out.
yeah. And then after the group interview day, we re-rank, and then you hear from us with I think pretty quickly, within a week or two, if you're invited to attend our program. So then you have until the April 15th deadline, I believe it is, to let us know. But yeah, that's the process of the entire application,
Yeah.
start to finish. So applying to the program. So right here is a link to the graduate college, and you can then find a link within the grad college, like to apply to the program. You can even look at admissions information. You can if you've never been to UNLV's campus, you can make an appointment to have a tour or get to know some of the graduate college team members. This is also a great place to look at financial resources, and they do a great job, I think, highlighting why the perks of attending UNLV.
Hmm.
So then the next slide is like, how do you apply to the CED program? Well, within the graduate college website, you'll then see a link to Grad Rebel Gateway. This portal is like everything, everything when it comes to applying, and then once you're admitted into the program. So here you'll have to there'll be login information. You'll have to provide an email. You can also register here to be able to submit your application materials. This is where you'll see what I mentioned before, the letters of recommendation, if they've been completed or not. And yeah, applications open September 1st. So you may be looking now and say I don't see it open. Where do I apply? That's just because the graduate college waits till September 1st to open it. So you have until September 1st until January 15th. We're just going to say January 15th because that's the early to submit all of your materials.
And I would say just because it doesn't open until September 1st doesn't mean you can't start working on your cover letter. If you're watching this and it's May, you have a few months to just kind of work on that and really fine tune and polish it.
And that writing sample piece, if you want to screenshot that, that is going to be the writing sample. So you
Yeah.
can start working on that as well, that we're not going to be changing the prompts to that. So okay. So we do get questions about graduate assistantships, like how do I pay for school? So again, Grad Rebel Gateway Portal is going to be the place where you start. They are constantly updating this list, and it's across the university looking for students. And our students are pretty highly sought after because of the interpersonal skills that you use or that you learn within our program and how that can be used at your graduate assistantship. So what we encourage students to do is to constantly look at the website and apply. Just apply across the boards, cast your net wide, I should say. Because what it does is it provides tuition reimbursement, monthly stipends, health insurance, all stuff that's very important. And if you're an out-of-state applicant, it also provides in-state tuition. And then, of course, there's a limited number just because that's how it is at the university. So yeah, this would be the place to take a look and find you're interested. All right, so now we're getting into resources. So you watched this entire introduction information session, but you still have questions, as you should. We definitely suggest that students take a look at our program handbook. There you will see a very detailed description of who we are, the different remediation processes we have, what you can expect from start to finish with the program. Great place to get a wealth of information. Practicum and internship handbook. This is our field-based experience coordinator, Dr. Clark, manages this, but this is where you'll learn more about, okay, once I enter field placement, what do they expect with practicum? What are the hours? What are the requirements? Please go here so you can have an idea of what that, once you are in those courses, what it'll look like. You can also reach out to faculty. So maybe you're researching this program, you love our mission statement, and you say who are the faculty? I mean, there's a lot of them. Reach out, say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about the program more. Please connect with us. We'd love to chit chat with you. We also have partnerships and very meaningful partnerships. So our training clinic here on campus is the UNLV practice. It's in the College of Education, but it's also, there's one Rancho location, which is in our Ward 1 district, which is about 15 minutes away from here, that focuses on working with children, adolescents, and youth. And our Maryland location, I would say, is more focused on serving adult population. But this is our training clinic. We have a very good, strong relationship with the UNLV practice, and we send a lot of students for practicum an internship to the site. But also we send a lot of students, I mean, I'm focusing on clinical mental health. We send a lot of students to our Clark County School District, which is our district within the area that a lot of our students are placed in, who are in the school counseling program. Organizations, Chi Sigma Iota is our honor society. We have our own chapter here, Omega Alpha, so we have a partnership with them. The American Counseling Association. So at the beginning of this presentation, I did like just a basic overview of the definition of counseling and who we are and our professional identity. Take a deep dive into ACA. There's so many resources there. It's a beautiful website, and a lot that you can learn about the profession. If you're like, ooh, do I want to go into counseling, or is there another field that fits me a little bit better? Definitely check out ACA. And then ASCA would be specific to the school counseling profession. Again, you heard me talk about that earlier when we were talking about the school counseling program. Definitely take a look at ASCA and their professional identity and how they define themselves, which again, our program aligns with the ASCA national model. And then of course, most importantly, students. So we email Dr. Dahl Jacinto or myself if you have an interest in connecting with a student. If you say like, gosh, I am a parent and I have young kids and I am trying to figure out how to do this. Like, how would I do this at night? How would I attend class from 4 to 7? We can connect you with another individual in our program that has the same different identity as you or experience as you, that they could say like, hey, here's how I navigated that process. Or if you just want a basic overview of like, what do you think of the program? We would love to connect you with current students. And last but not least, licensure information. So this would be specific to the State of Nevada Board of Examiners for marriage and family therapists and clinical professional counselors. This would be for our clinical mental health counseling program or our certificate in clinical mental health counseling. You'd want to take a look at this website. The Nevada Department of Education is the department that licenses our school counselors. Here's a direct link to applying as a school counselor. And then for our advanced addiction certificate, the Nevada State Board of Examiners for alcohol, drug, and gambling counselors is another great resource we recommend. So usually we have questions because this is live with people that are attending these information sessions. But we hope that if you do have questions, please reach out to again myself, Dr. Catherine Feather, or Dr. Dahl Jacinto. We will answer those questions. Or if you, again, anyone else in the program, we are open to responding. We hope that you found this information session helpful, and we look forward to seeing your application come through in the fall.